Welcome to Sakshi TV's special immigration talk show with attorney Mr. Parvathaneni. Please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. I want viewers to also know that there are 4 immigration shows every week: on Tuesdays with Mr. Kaveti, on Wednesdays with Prashanti Reddy in English, on Thursday with Chand Parvathaneni, and on Fridays with Banu and Indra. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call us at 866-725-7441. You can call on the numbers on the screen. And without any further delay, let's welcome Mr. Parvathaneni on our show. Parvathaneni Garu, I hope you're doing well.
Hello, Shivani, and thank you all at Sakshi TV for tuning in to watch this show today.
Yes. Before we get on to the topic, Mr. Parvathaneni, I was wondering if you can talk a little about your law firm, which is SPV Law Firm. Can you talk a little about what you deal with and, where are you from?
Sure. Our law firm is based in Dallas, and I've been practicing as an attorney since 2011. We started our law firm in 2012, so it's more than a decade, more than 10 years practicing in Dallas area. And I primarily deal with employment-based immigration. I handle a lot of cases for a lot of IT companies all over US. We represented state governments in the past, public hospitals in the past, big S&P 500 companies, a lot of IT services companies. So we deal a lot with IT companies. And that is pretty much what I focus on. I focus a lot on H-1Bs, green cards, EB-2, EB-3 green cards, and so on. And previous to becoming a lawyer, I had a technology background. I worked in US for a long time in IT companies in various roles. And before that, I did my engineering in India from IIT Kharagpur. That was a long time back, about 23 years back. I came to US. I came to US in 2000, and been living in Dallas area for the last 23 years. And there is a lot of immigration work that's happening all the time. And our law firm, we are proud to help a lot of people all over the world to come to US, come and work for US, work for various specialized jobs. Mostly we deal with specialized occupations. And when we say specialized occupations, what it means is people are very talented. People have at least a bachelor's degree, so which means that it's highly educated people. So we are lucky to be associated with highly qualified people from all over the world as we work with them to help them work in the United States.
Yes. Mr. Parvathaneni, we did discuss that we will be talking a little about the US green card processing and how the PERM labor filing is happening. But before we get on to that, are there any latest immigration updates that we have to know?
Sure. So today we got a major update, and that is about the second lottery. So the H-1B, we had the first lottery in March. So we had the first list in March. And today, just earlier this morning, USCIS came out with an announcement, and they stated that there would be a second lottery. And there is a reason for that. So this year, there were record number of applications. There were literally the highest number of registrations that USCIS has ever seen. But what has happened is not many have applied. So in the month of April, USCIS came back and they gave a big warning. They said they are seeing a lot of fraud. They are seeing a lot of multiple registrations happening. And they asked the companies, basically they warned the companies that they will refer those companies for criminal prosecution. And looks like that warning helped a lot. A lot of companies where there was a multiple registration issue where people colluded with other companies to increase their chances. So those companies backed out. And what that meant is a lot of companies did not apply, even though they got a selection in the first lottery. So USCIS today, they announced that they did not get as many applications as the slots were available. So there are 85,000 slots available. And they said they did not get enough petitions. So they said, since there are slots available, they're going to do a second lottery. And at this point of time, the employers, the companies, they should be looking at their portal, the My USCIS portal, and in the next couple of days, they should be seeing some updates, some new selections. And USCIS did not say when they will finish this process, but definitely in the next couple of days, the companies can expect to see the new selections happening, and they will again get 90 days. So in the next 90 days, they should be planning for their lottery filings.
Yeah. So, Mr. Parvathaneni, is it true that the PERM filing with PERM process, that which is very critical for green card, has drastically changed this month? What is your view on this?
So ever since this PERM process was available, Department of Labor, they had a site called PLC. So it's a portal where all the labor filings are supposed to be done. So it's an electronic filing system, and all along we had to use the 9089 form in that website. And very recently, this is actually starting from June 1st. So starting from June 1st, the Department of Labor, they started a new process. So basically, companies now have to use a portal called Flag. So it's a very common portal that they use for H1B LCAs. And the DOL said that even for the PERM filings, which are critical pieces for the actual green card filings, they have to start using this Flag portal. And they made some substantive revisions to the form. So we use a form called 9089, which is the labor filing form application. So they redesigned the form. So the way they're asking the various questions got redesigned, and the process seems a little bit more cumbersome. And they started this new process. And again, the goal of this new process is it will provide more transparency, but at least from a timeline perspective, at least for the initial filings, this is probably going to slow down the PERM process. And until the old filings in the old PLC website are complete, DOL more than likely will not act on the new flag filings. So in terms of timelines from various practical purposes, we can assume that the timelines will be a little bit longer, and the PERM process, which is already slow, it is probably going to get even worse in the next couple of months.
Yes. And also, can you briefly explain the high-level steps to get the employment-based green card, and especially what is the label filing in the process to get the green card?
So pretty much everybody that works on H1 in US. So H1B is a very common visa that people use, but end of the day, it's a temporary visa. So it's a temporary visa that can be given for a max of 3 years, and every 3 years they have to keep on renewing it. So what typically employees do is once they decide to stay back in the country long term, they want to go through the green card process. And since they're working for a company, there is a process to get a green card. And for employment-based immigration, for most of the people, the process starts off with the company, their employer, sponsoring the green card. So everybody's the employer will initiate a process, and they have to go through that process. And once they go through that process, depending on the country of birth, they have to wait for a certain time. And if it is India, the waiting times are the longest. And if somebody is from a country of birth, say somebody is born in Pakistan, Bangladesh, or any other country that is not India, that is not China, the timelines are very, very quick. So they get green cards a lot faster. But unfortunately, because employment-based green card is based on the country of birth, and India right now has the longest wait times. So typically, anybody that's born in India, they're waiting for a very, very long time. And in terms of the process, once the employer decides to sponsor somebody for a green card, they have to do something called labor filing, labor PERM filing. So that is the step one. So they do a labor PERM filing. It takes some time. And then the company has to do something called I-140 filing. So the company does an I-140 filing. And once that is approved, after a long time, and when I say a long time, right now it is probably about 10 to 15 years. Down the line, the dates will become current. And that point of time, somebody is able to apply for a green card and get the actual green card. So in terms of the process, it's kind of a 3-step process. The first 2 steps are handled by the employer. The third step is handled by the employee to get the green card.
Mr. Parvathaneni, my next question is currently for the Indian nationals who are actually getting their green cards, approximately at what time were their labor filings, completed? So, if you give the viewers a certain idea, I think they will also kind of understand for how long it will take them to get a green card.
Sure. So most of the Indians use two categories. One is EB2 and one is EB3. And majority of the Indians get green cards in employment-based world through those two categories. And what happens is there is something called a visa bulletin. And this visa bulletin gets published every month by Department of State. And that is the chart where we can find out the date, the priority date of the cases which are being processed for a green card. So right now the dates went back. So the dates for EB3 went back to 2009 and the dates for EB2 went back to 2011. So if you look at what is happening today, so as of today, USCIS is able to grant green cards for somebody that has filed this labor application, this PERM application, around 2009 to 2011 timeframe, approximately. But previously, the dates were around 2012, 2013. So a lot of people who started the process around 2012, 2013 have already got their green cards. So in terms of timeline, you're looking at about 10 to 13 years back. So if people got their PERM and labors filed about 10 to 13 years back, they probably are in the process of getting their green card or got their green cards. So anybody after 2013, starting from 2014, some people in 2014 got their green cards, but majority of 2014 filings and anybody whose labor got filed after 2014, they are still waiting for their green cards. So approximately about 10 to 13 years. However, the caveat is that down the line, going forwards, the wait times are expected to be longer. So if somebody is getting their labor application, their labor filing done today in 2023, based on the current rules and regulations, it might take a very long time, at least 30 to 50 years, based on the current rules. If the rules change, things could be different. But there is so much of backlog in the last couple of years that if somebody starts the process right now, there is definitely no guarantee that they will be able to get a green card in 10 to 15 years. And that keeps changing because the rules keep changing and they have to recalculate the dates based on various things. But I mean, definitely at least 10 years is what somebody can expect if they're getting into this process right away.
Yes. And how long does this labor certification process take place?
So, and again, labor certification process, it's a very important and a very critical step because when anybody enters into this green card process, most of the people are on H1B. And H1B in general is valid only for 6 years. So after 6 years, if somebody's on H1B, they have to leave the country. They have to leave US and go back to their home country. So the only way somebody can work in the country for more than 6 years is they have to get the green card process started. And that means they have to get their labor process started. So if their labor process is not completed, if their labor process is not done, they can't even extend their H1. So it is very critical, the timelines for the labor processing. It is very, very important because one has to be cautious. If the labor is not done, their H1B is jeopardized after 6 years. And previously, the labor processing used to be very quick, around 4 months. Unfortunately, in the last 1 year, it has become extremely slow. And right now, people who filed their labor last September, they're getting their PERM application certified right now. So one is looking at about 10 months. So if somebody gets their PERM filed, it takes 10 months. But to even file the PERM, there is like a lot of pre-work that goes into it. The company has to advertise, the company has to apply for prevailing wages. So that's another 6-7 months. So right now, if a company says, I want to sponsor a green card for somebody and start the PERM process, from the day they start the process to the day the labor application is certified, it is almost a 1.5-year process. And what that means for a lot of people is know the timelines, because if you don't get this labor process started very early on, you have to leave the country after 6 years of H1B and leave the country. So if you don't want to leave the country after 6 years, your company has to do the labor, has to go through that process. That is the only way your H1B can be extended for more than 6 years. So in terms of timelines are very bad. Labor is taking a very long time, almost a year and a half from the time you start the process, the prevailing wage process and the advertising process. So everybody should be aware of the long timelines and act accordingly.
Yes. And also, what are the main steps involved in these kind of labor certification process, Mr. Parvathaneni?
So once the company decides they want to file the labor, which is the very first step of the green card process for the employees, the first step they have to do is they have to go to Department of Labor. They have to do what is called a prevailing wage determination filing, PWD. So the prevailing wage determination means the company is letting DOL know the job duties, know the requirements, and is waiting for Department of Labor to come back and say, this is the wage you have to offer them if you want to sponsor their green card. So this prevailing wage determination process, this is the very first step, and this is a very critical step. And once the company does that, DOL takes about 6 months. And in 6 months, Department of Labor comes back and says, for this position, you have to offer so much of salary if you want to sponsor the green card. That is the very first step. And at that point of time, the company is supposed to advertise. They're supposed to put this advertisement, job opening, in various places, local newspaper and websites, and so on. So they are supposed to advertise in the newspapers and other places, and they're supposed to offer the job and test the labor market to see if there is somebody qualified in that location. And if there is any US citizen or anybody who's qualified, who is authorized to work, if they are willing to take up this job, the company can't even sponsor for the green card. But if the company advertises and then they find out that there is nobody qualified to take up the job, at that point of time, the company is able to go back to Department of Labor and file the labor application. This labor application, the day it is filed, that is the day they get a date called priority date. They are put in the queue for green card. So this actual filing of labor is the part where the company tells Department of Labor that they have gone through the prevailing wage process, they have gone through the advertising process, and since there is nobody available in the United States to take up the job, they are wanting to sponsor a green card for somebody who's a foreign national. So that's a very important step, and that is the day you file the PERM, and then the waiting game, the waiting of the certification of PERM begins.
Yes. Can you also explain what exactly is the recruiting and advertising process and how long does it usually take?
So before a company can sponsor anybody for a green card, they have to do something called advertising. So advertising is where they have to advertise the process in certain media that is authorized by Department of Labor. So every green card, before every green card filing can be done, the Department of Labor requires that the company advertise for 2 weeks, 2 Sundays in a newspaper. And that is critical. So they have to advertise in a newspaper for 2 Sundays. They also have to advertise in the state work order website. So that is also mandatory. They also have optional places. So they have choices where they can pick among a couple of valid media. For example, they can choose to advertise in a job portal, for example, monster.com or some famous job portal. They can decide to advertise in a radio station and so on. So there are a couple of ways they can advertise, but they have to advertise in all those required places. And this is a 30-day process. So they are supposed to advertise and document all their steps of advertising. And the goal of this advertising is to make sure this job posting is out in the open and it is available for anybody that wants to apply and let this company know that they are qualified. So once this 30-day advertising period is over, there is a 30-day cooling off period. So during this cooling off period, typically what companies do is they look at any resumes that they receive and they go through it, they screen the resumes, they screen the applicants, and they have to go through that process to ensure that they are actually thoroughly reviewing these resumes to make sure nobody is qualified. If there is anybody qualified in US, you can't sponsor the green card. But if you look at all the resumes, you review all your applicants, and if nobody is qualified, you finish your advertising process. So this entire process is a 60-day process. And then you decide to go ahead and file the PERM.
Yes. And also, can a company sponsor for someone who is a relative of the owner? So, is it allowed to sponsor a green card for someone who is a family member or a relative of the owners or the shareholders of the company?
So there are different kinds of green card categories. And typically for employment based, we are mostly dealing with EB2 or EB3 categories. And EB2 or EB3 categories always will require, more than likely, will require a job sponsorship. What that means is there is a company, and that company is supposed to sponsor a foreign national. And as a part of that sponsorship, the company is supposed to advertise and look for talent locally. Department of Labor, they take an approach that if somebody is related to the owner of the company, so somebody owns the company and they're trying to sponsor, say, their nephew or the brother or somebody that is a relative of them, there is a good chance that they're skewing up the advertising process, because the big part of filing for a green card, you are trying to advertise, you're trying to look for local talent. But if somebody is your relative, you are going to reject all the applicants. You're going to reject all the applications, all the resumes, because you have a motivation to sponsor for your relative. And Department of Labor, because there is this chance of being motivated to sponsor for your relative. In general, there is a question in the PERM application where they specifically ask the applicant to disclose if they are related to the employee. And in general, if somebody is related to the employee, the PERM will not go through. The PERM will not be approved. So what we recommend is, if the owner of the company or the officers of the company are in any way related to the applicant, the employee, they should not be sponsoring the PERM. And PERM is not the right way, because there is definitely a bias towards that employee, and there is a good chance that they will skew up the advertising process. So in general, if somebody is related to the owner of the company, the PERM process is almost impossible, and the company should not be filing the PERM.
Yes. And also, Mr. Parvathaneni, once the labor is applied, and is it like always approved from their side, or will there be any issues coming from Department of the Labor?
So the PERM process, it's a very complex process, and it is also a process where the government requires the company to go through a lot of steps. And what that means is, once the application is done, Department of Labor is checking a lot of things. So they're making sure all the regulations are followed. And what that means is, most of the time, because the companies use attorneys for the PERM process, most of the time, things are thorough. That being said, USCI, the Department of Labor, audits a lot of cases. And if they see any major issues, any substantive issues, they always point it out. However, in terms of percentages, most of the cases do get certified. But the cases that are not certified, typically what happens is they go through an audit process, or if there is a big issue on the face of the application, they get a direct denial. Direct denials are a possibility for firms. And if there is a direct denial, they always tell the issue. And what that means is, the company can always fix the issue. They can do another filing. They can fix the issue and do another filing. And on the other side, if there is an audit, the company will have to respond back to the audit, let Department of Labor know what the issue is and how they plan to resolve it, provide them the documents. And audits, typically, they will be resolved if the company is giving all the documents. So in general, if it's a denial, as long as it's not a denial because of fraud or any misrepresentation, the best thing to do is reapply and fix the problem.
Yes. Finally, Mr. Parvathaneni, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers, because we only have last few minutes?
Sure. So getting a green card, it is the goal of most of the people who are on H-1B, because H-1B is a career. They're contributing to the economy of US. They're contributing to the company's future. They're also contributing to their own career. And H-1B is always temporary. So everybody, most of the people on H-1B, they do plan to be permanent residents, which is being a green card holder. And there is nothing wrong, but because the green card process is so complex, they should be talking to their employer and they should be asking their employers to start the process well ahead of time, because everybody is on H1B only for 6 years and they can't wait until the last minute. So the only advice I give to anybody that's on H1B is talk to your employer, have them start the green card process as early as possible. It's a lengthy process, but if it is done early, even if there are any issues, you'll have enough time to recover and make sure you are put in the queue and your process goes smoothly.
Yes. Thank you again, Mr. Parvathaneni, for tuning on. I hope the viewers have enjoyed it. Thank you again, viewers, for tuning in. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.
Thank you so much.